And if we are increasing the input and the output is increasing at the same rate, that situation is called constant returns to scale. And the third situation in which the increase in the output is less than the increase in the input, that situation is called decreasing returns to scale. So these are three possible situations, uh, scenario that is possible in the long run. Increasing returns to scale, constant returns to scale, and decreasing returns to scale. These are the three possible scenarios. Now coming to the reason why sometimes a firm experiences increasing returns to scale, the answer is economies and diseconomies of scale. Economies, the firm which is experiencing increasing returns to scale is because of economies of scale. And the firm which is experiencing decreasing returns to scale is actually experiencing diseconomies of scale. Diseconomies of scale. And the straight line, that is constant returns to scale, is the level at which the forces of economies and diseconomies are equal, and none of these two forces are dominating over each other. So that is the constant returns to scale, where the change in the output is equal to the change in the input. So these are three possible scenarios in the long run. And this is the key point that you should keep in mind, that this happens in the long run. This happens in the long run. And what is the long run period? A long run period is one in which inputs, all inputs are variable. In other words, every every resource that we can use for producing a particular thing can be changed in the long run. Even, so for example, new technology can be adopted, new factory can be set up, new machinery can be bought, new employees and managers can be hired, etc. So everything which we use in the production of a particular output, uh, that can be changed in the long run. So for today, we are going to talk about the reasons why the economies of scale works. In simple words, if we define that we talked yesterday, economies of scale in simple words is decrease in the long run average cost. And if we are talking actually per unit, not the total cost, because the total cost will always increase. But here, what happens is that per unit cost decreases if we increase the scale of production. If we increase the scale of production, uh, if we increase the scale of production, the long run average cost per unit decreases. This situation is known as economies of scale. Now, these are some of the reasons why economies of scale happens. Why the long run average cost decreases when we increase the scale of production. So the first reason is specialization and division of labor. So at large scale, we can take the benefit of specialization. Say, for example, if the employees are very less, so they have to perform every kind of duty. But if we hire more people, they can be assigned some specialized jobs which are repetitive in nature, and as a result, their efficiency will increase. Efficiency. So if people perform repetitive job and they become expert in that job, the output, the labor output will increase, or in other words, the efficiency of that labor will increase. So one of the reason why long-term average cost reduces is because of specialization and division of labor. If we have large labor size, we can divide them according to the nature of the work that they can perform more efficiently, and this will result into reduction of labor cost. So this is one of the reason why economies of scale works. So specialization and division of labor in large scale plants, workers can do more simple and repetitive jobs. This specialization and division of labor, less training is needed. Workers can become highly efficient in their particular job, especially with long production. There is less time lost in workers switching from one operation to another. Supervision is also easier. Workers and managers can be employed who have specific skills in specific areas. So the supervision is also easy. If you know, so the cost of supervision will also reduce. Similarly, we can hire people with specific skills in specific areas. So specialization and division of labor is one reason why economies of scale works, or why long run average cost reduces when the scale of production is increased by a firm. Another possible reason is indivisibilities. The economies of scale or long run average cost reduces because of indivisibilities. What is indivisibility? There are some inputs, there are some resources which cannot be divided into parts. Say, for example, a machinery. Every machinery has some minimum level of output. We cannot divide a machinery into two and say half machinery we will use half machinery, and we will not use the other half of the machine. This is not possible because of the nature of the machinery, that if we are using that machinery, we have to produce some minimum level of output. And similarly, every machinery has some capacity, maximum capacity. So what happens in the short run, uh, initially, we are not using the full capacity of a machinery or full capacity of the plant. But once we increase the scale of production, the full capacity of the plant, the full capacity of the machinery is utilized. And as a result, the per unit cost of production reduces. Because whether we produce less number of output, or we are utilizing the maximum capacity of the machinery and plant, the fixed cost associated with the machinery will remain same. The cost of wear and tear, the cost of maintaining that machinery, the cost associated with the running of the machinery, the labor that is required to run or maintain that machinery, these are some fixed costs. So initially, the fixed cost will be spread over less number of units. But if we are utilizing the full capacity of the machinery, full capacity of the plant, the fixed cost associated with that machinery and plant will be distributed over more number of units of output, and this will reduce the per unit cost. This will reduce per unit cost. Per unit. So per unit cost will reduce if we utilize the full capacity of a machinery, full capacity of the plant. And why this phenomena happens? Because of the indivisibility. Because plant cannot be divided into parts. Similarly, machinery cannot be divided into parts. A machinery, has to be used in full. We cannot say that let us, not utilize half of the machine and let us utilize half of the machine. So indivisibility, some inputs are of a minimum size. They are indivisible. The most obvious example is machinery. Invisible setup cost, the cost of an indivisible input for which a certain minimum amount of production must be undertaken before the input becomes economically feasible to use. For example, say you want to produce a pound of steel, you can't just build a mini blast furnace, stick in some coke and iron ore and come out with a single pound of steel. The smallest technically efficient blast furnace have a production capacity measured in tons per hour, not pounds per year. So when a firm increases the scale of production, the minimum, economically feasible level of production initially, comes that level, then the maximum capacity of the plant or machinery is utilized, and as a result, as a consequence, the per unit cost is reduced. So, say for example, if we are establishing a machinery, a setup for producing, say for example, cloth. So that machinery may have a maximum capacity. If that machinery has to be used 20 hours per day, uh, so how many meters of cloth can be produced? So initially, if the machinery is not being used for 20 hours, that is the maximum capacity. The machinery is being used only for 10 hours, say for example. So the machinery is not being utilized fully. So once we increase the scale of production, the utilization of that machinery will increase, and as a result, the cost per unit will also reduce. So this is, in one word, this phenomena is called indivisibility. So first reason of why economies of scale works, the first reason is specialization, and the second reason is indivisibility. Now the third reason, which is organizational economy. What is this? With a large firm, individual plants can specialize in particular functions. There can also be centralized administration of the firm. For example, one human resource department would administer all the wages. Often, after a merger between two firms, savings can be made by rationalizing their activities. There are some economies, some benefits, some reduction in the cost that happens because of organizational economies. One example of organizational economy is uh, centralization of different kinds of activity. For example, HR. So if a company has, say, for example, 4, 5, 6 plants situated in different cities. One is in North India, one is in South India, one is in Central, for example, Northeast India. And every plant has a different, HR department that looks after, the HR needs of that plant. But if the organization is very large, it can centralize that kind of activity instead of maintaining different HR offices at different locations. It can just establish a central office and a single HR office that can that can take care of all human resource requirements and needs of that organization, and that will reduce the HR the number of people required to undertake the HR needs of the organization, and this will reduce the cost associated with human resource management HR department, the cost associated with the HR department of the organization. So this is one example. Another example could be, say, for example, R&D. So if the firm is very large, the R&D activity can be centralized. If the firm is very large, the financing activity can also be, centralized. The finance department, I mean, a single finance department can take care of different plants. So whether there is a single plant, there will be, we have to maintain a finance department. But if the company has 10 plants, then again a single finance department is sufficient for taking care of 10 plants or 10 manufacturing facilities. So this kind of benefit is known as organizational economies. Organizational economies. And because of organizational economies, the cost per unit of production reduces, which results to economies of scale. Then again, the fourth reason why economies of scale works is because of spreading overheads. Overheads, another name for overhead is, can anybody tell me what is the another name for overheads? Can anyone guess? Okay. So overheads are also known as fixed costs. So some expenditures are economic only when the firm is large. For example, R&D.
So can you call them capital expenditure?
No, capital expenditure is different. Fixed cost is different. Fixed cost is, for example, if we are utilizing, if we have taken electricity connection. So even if we shut down the factory, there is some minimum level of electricity charges that we have to pay. Or say, for example, we have to, take care of the safety of the plant, and we have to employ a security guard, whether the plant is running or not. So the cost associated with the electricity, the cost associated with the security, we call such costs as overheads. Overheads.
So depreciation included.
Depreciation.
Whether you run the machine or not, you'll incur such cost.
Yes, we can fit the depreciation also in the overheads. But the term that you have used, fixed the capital expenditure, that happens only one time. Capital expenditure happens a single time, but the overhead cost occurs, every time. I mean, weekly, monthly, yearly. But the capital expenditure is done only a single time. So, for example, machinery has to be set up only one time, and it will continue to exist for the next 10 years or 20 years, whatever is the life of that machinery. So that nature is that kind of expenditure is known as capital expenditure. But fixed cost, overheads, so if you are producing something, all costs can be divided into two types: variable cost and overheads. So, say for example, the raw material. So, raw material is variable. If we are increasing the output, we have to increase the raw material. but the overheads are not associated with the level of production. It is fixed. It is almost fixed. So, say for
Got it.
example, so some expenditures are economic only when the firm is large. For example, R&D. Only a large firm can afford to set up a research laboratory. This is another example of indivisibility. So, I mean, these concepts are overlapping also. We can fit in examples, of indivisibility uh, in the spreading overheads also. So, this is another example of indivisibility, only this time at the level of the firm rather than the plant. So, at the plant level, we cannot conduct R&D activity. It will be very costly because R&D activity is a costly thing, and if the size of the plant is very small, it cannot afford to undertake R&D activity. But if the size of the firm is very large, so it can undertake the R&D activity. Say, for example, in India, there are pharma companies. So big pharma companies like Dr. Reddy, Lupin, Ipca, uh, Aurobindo Pharma. I mean, these are some big names from the Indian pharma sector. So their sales are into hundreds of crores quarterly and thousands of crores yearly. So they can take some money, they can channel some money for the purpose of research and development. But if there is a small pharma company whose sales is only into crores, few crores, so it cannot afford to undertake the R&D activity. So, and if it undertakes the R&D activity, the cost per unit will be very high because the cost associated with R&D has to be distributed over the products which is it is selling, and the price of its product will be very high because its scale is very less. But if the company is very large, it can afford to undertake the R&D. So why? So in other words, we can say that the overhead, that is R&D cost, will be distributed, will be spread over large number of output, large number of uh, products, which is not possible if the size of the company is small. Another kind of economy, we can club such economies in one category, that is financial economies. There are some economies associated with the finance function of the firm, finance activity of the firm. What is that? What are the examples in this category? So take what happens in the real world if there are two firms. The size of one firm is small and the size of another firm is very big. And both approach a bank for financing. So the smaller company will face difficulty in raising the fund, but the large firm will not face as much difficulty as it is faced by the smaller firm. Similarly, the rate of interest that the large firm will be able to get loan at will be lower than the rate of interest that small firms will be able to get. So the large companies or the big business houses get generally they get discount from finance companies and from banks. They can get loans at a better rate than compared to small and medium scale companies. So that kind of economy, that kind of benefit can be termed as financial economies. So large firms are often able to obtain finance at lower interest rates than small firms. There are several reasons behind this. One of the reasons could be the past history of that large organization, the past history of the relationship between bank and that firm. The same bank is giving loan to that same company since last 20 years or 10 years. So there is a trust that has developed, between that bank and that large organization. And in case of new companies, in case of new and small company, the trust between the lender bank and that company, the new company, is very less. And that is why the banks are reluctant to lend money at a better rate, at a lower rate. So that is why they charge high rate of interest from smaller companies and smaller that are operating at a smaller scale. So this is one example of financial economy. Another example of financial economy could be they may be able to obtain certain inputs cheaper by buying in bulk. We all know that if we buy something in bulk, we get discount from the seller, isn't it? Which is not possible if we are buying in small quantity. So if the company is very large, it can afford to buy the input in a very large quantity in bulk, and as a result, it will get discount from the supplier. But if the scale of production is very less, the scale at which a small company is operating, it cannot afford to buy in bulk because I mean then you know because its scale of production is very less. It does not have space to store that kind of large quantity of input and many other reasons. But large companies normally they can afford to buy because their requirement is also very big, and so they normally buy in bulks, and as a result they get bulk discount, and as a result their cost is per unit cost is lower than the per unit cost of smaller companies. So this kind of economy is also an example of financial economy. Any comment, any observation? There is a book, the title of the book is A Travels of a T-shirt in the Global Economy, uh, which has been written by Pietra Regoli. In her book, she studied a T-shirt. So the T-shirt said "Made in China," but when she tracked down the process of making the T-shirt that she bought in Florida, she discovered that it's a lot more complicated than that. To the company that shipped the shirt was in Shanghai. It was shipped in Shanghai, China. But guess where the cotton for the shirt came from? West Texas, USA. So the cotton that was used in the production of that T-shirt was produced in West Texas, USA, at a farm like the Lynch family farm that is highlighted in Regoli's. Now here is an exam question for you. Why if China's labor cost is 1/20th that of US labor cost? Is the cotton for a t-shirt grown in the United States shipped across the ocean to the China to be woven and sewn into a t-shirt and shipped back again to the United States to be sold? So just think about this. Why the cotton is being exported to from US to China, and then it is the t-shirt is sewed in China, then again it is exported back to US and it is made available uh, in the showrooms. What could be the reason why?
So the labor laws in China is like quite different from the USA. Like in the USA, there is a premium. There is an insurance policy for every the labor that you assign. But in China, the labor cost is so low.
Mm. Wakas, your point is very correct. that in China labor cost is very low, and one of the reason why the labor cost is low because of the kind of regulations that is there in China. The kind labor laws in US are very tough. For example, labor laws in terms of the minimum wage, in terms of insurance of the labor, etc. That example that you have given. So that is one aspect of this phenomenon. Why the T-shirt is being the because weaving of T-shirt requires labor, and the labor is cheap in China. That is one aspect. But another thing, why the cotton is not being produced in China? Why the cotton is being produced in US? So the answer is economies of scale. Cotton is produced in various countries. Cotton is produced in India also. Cotton is produced in Africa also. But in United States, the farm size is very large. Say, for example, she has given this thing in her book. She demonstrated these things. She observed that in Africa, average size of farm is 8 acre. And in fact, the United States, one of the leaders in the world in the production of cotton, has done so far over 200 years. Farms in Africa average 8 acres, and in China average less than 1 acre. But the farm size in China is only 1 acre. And in US, the farm size is very large. For example, she observed that it's around 1,000 acres. So a single farmer in US normally has 1,000 acres of land on which the farmer produces that cotton. So since the level or scale of production is very large, labor is also not required because of the advanced machinery that is utilized in the agriculture sector in the United States. So labor cost is not required, is not a big thing. I mean, it's not required actually in farming in the US. But the thing why United States is above, is preferred over Africa and any other country, because the farm size in US is large, and because farm size is large, so the cost per unit of cotton is less. So size makes a difference. Size makes a difference. Cotton farmers outside the United States almost exclusively handpick their cotton because US farmers have such large farms, they can use large machinery to do all the picking and thereby take advantage of economies of scale, countering the much higher labor costs in the United States. So although labor cost is very high, but since they use large machinery and they can afford to use large machinery because the size of their farm is very, very large, which is not the case with the African countries, where the size of, the farm that is owned by an average farmer is very less. But the size of a farm that is owned by an American is very large. So this she observed this reason why the cotton is so cheap if if we buy it from US. So the main reason, the main economic reason is economies of scale. So that's all for today, and we will continue the discussion on economies of scale as well as the opposite concept of economies, that is diseconomies of scale. It's not the case that if we increase the scale of production, it will always result into lower cost per unit. Sometimes the average cost starts increasing. That scenario is called, that situation is called diseconomies of scale. And what are the reasons for diseconomies of scale? We will talk about them in the next class. So now let me save your attendance in the chat box. Any question, any observation, any comment?